This is the new single barrel collection from Four Roses, which features a series of 3 100 proof bourbons featuring 3 of their distinctive recipes. This launch actually lines up with the 20th anniversary of the day Four Roses launched its flagship single barrel bourbon, which is made from the Four Roses OBSV recipe. And up until now, it was the only single barrel version of a recipe that we could try that was just available on the shelf and not a private select. Which one is my personal favorite? Let's taste them. Come right back. It's the Mash and Drum. What's up, folks? I'm Jason C. from the Mash and Drum, and welcome back to the show. Like, subscribe, and help me keep climbing to 100,000 subscribers here in 2025. Appreciate the support, everyone. All right, since we're drinking 3 bourbons today, it's no better time to talk about today's video sponsor. They are back. It is Zbiotics. All right, they are back. Today's sponsor is Zbiotics, the world's first genetically engineered probiotic that I've been using and talking about for about the last 2 years. What can I say? It's really you guys that have me continuing to talk about Zbiotics. So many stories I hear when I go to bourbon meetups and tastings, bourbon events. Honestly, the best stories I always hear is how skeptical people are before they try this. And then once they do, boom, they realize how freaking good this stuff works. It really has become the first drink for a better tomorrow. So for those of you that do not know how this works, how does it work so well? Zbiotics was developed by some very smart scientists who knew the real problem is not dehydration. It's actually a byproduct of alcohol that is most responsible for rough mornings after drinking. Zbiotics produces an enzyme like the one your liver uses to break down this byproduct. Now, I know I mainly talk about bourbon and whiskey, but a lot of people have asked me, what about other spirits? So if you're a wine drinker, tequila, rum, strictly cocktails, whatever it may be, Zbiotics can still help you out in those situations where you need to be at your best the very next day. On top of that, Zbiotics has no random plant extracts, no off-the-shelf ingredients, no sugar added. The stuff just works. All you have to do is drink one of these about an hour before you start drinking, and that's it. Still drink water, stay hydrated, and as always, get a good night's sleep if you can. But Zbiotics will make it a lot easier for you to get out of bed, get off the couch, get back to the gym the next day, especially if you know you're gonna have a few drinks the night before. Want to see if Zbiotics will work for you? Here's how. Go to zbiotics.com/mashanddrum or scan the QR code on the screen right now to get 15% off your first order when you use Mash and Drum at checkout. You can also sign up for a subscription using my code so you can stay prepared no matter the time or occasion. And don't worry, Zbiotics is backed by a 100% money-back guarantee. So if it happens not to work for you, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. So remember, head to zbiotics.com/mashanddrum and use the code mashanddrum at checkout to get your 15% off. Don't wait, order now. Thank you to Zbiotics for sponsoring the episode, and thanks to you for making the sponsors happen. So as I mentioned, this release is alongside the 20th anniversary of the day Four Roses launched its flagship single barrel bourbon, which is available on the shelves everywhere, which uses that OBSV recipe. And the only other way to try their other singular recipes were through private selects that all varied in proof. But now we could try single barrel editions of 3 other recipes from Four Roses, which are OBSF, OESK, and OESO. Now each bottle in the new collection will be aged 7 to 9 years, and Four Roses says that it will rotate in a new single barrel collection each year. This will introduce drinkers to each of its 10 recipes, which are made with different combinations of Four Roses mash bills and yeast strains. Now each expression has a suggested retail price of $49.99 a bottle, and they are starting to roll out now. All right, so a quick breakdown of the recipes in case you need a refresher or in case anyone's, buying Four Roses for the first time. Each Four Roses recipe is assigned a 4-letter code that describes how it's made. The first letter is always O. This means it was made at Four Roses Distillery, but why the letter O? Four Roses was originally called Old Prentice Distillery when it was built in 1910. Now the second letter will either be a B or E in the recipe, and it designates which mash bill is used. Now, if it's a B, that's their high rye mash bill with 60% corn, 35% rye, and 5% malted barley. If it's an E, that consists of 75% corn, 20% rye, and 5% malted barley. Now the third letter will always be S, and it simply means that each recipe is a straight bourbon whiskey. Now the final letter in the recipe refers to which of the 5 yeast strains is used in each recipe. The different strains all impart a slightly different flavor to each recipe during the fermentation process. Now if it's a letter V, that's supposed to give notes of delicate fruit. K will mean slight spice. O is rich fruit flavors. Q brings a floral essence, and F brings minty herbal qualities. So 2 mash bills, 5 different yeast strains, 5 times 2 is 10, do the math. 10 recipes. That means we have 6 more recipes that Four Roses will release in this series as we go forward. All right, so we're gonna start with OBSF, which is made from mash bill B, which I mentioned is the higher rye mash bill, yeast strain F, which even on the back it tells you the flavor notes you're supposed to get, delicate rye, apple, mint, clove, and cocoa. So let's see what we get. So I think Four Roses is pretty spot on when they say mint. I think this is definitely one of the more mint forward type of mash bills, especially given that that high rye mash bill too. I mean, 35% rye plus this yeast strain, you really get some herbal qualities. One of the notes that I always get on OBSV is kind of an apple pear combination with some cinnamon. I do feel like there is that here as well. However, I do think the rye is pretty prevalent. I could definitely see some clove, maybe even a little hint of allspice as well. Your caramels and vanillas are here. I don't think I so much I'm getting chocolate or anything like that, but man, it's pretty minty to me. But let's give it a try. Here we go. On the palate, yeah, this is all OBSF. If you've had some of the private selects before, OBSF, you know, can get pretty rye forward, and that has that here. And I get the chocolate a little bit more on the palate. Again, mixed with that hint of apple and pear combination. Decent baking spice here, but the spice on this one is what really comes through. But it's not a peppery spice, it's more of a minty spice. So on that sip, I really feel like the apple was trying to peek through a little bit more, but yeah, the rye spice, that floral quality it has, and that mintiness really shines through. So if you're typically a rye drinker, so if you're a typical rye drinker or you like rye whiskeys, you might lean towards the OBSF more than the other 3 recipes. So let's get into the OESK, which is one of my personal favorite recipes. So now this is an OESK. It's comprised of Four Roses mash bill E, which is the lower rye mash bill. So this only has 20% rye in the mash bill, which is still high typically, you know, when you compare it to other mash bills made out of Kentucky. Now the K strain here says aromas of baking spice, mellow oak, tea leaves, and caramel. So OESK, here we go. See, now the difference here with OESK from the OBSF, now there is a lot of spice here, but this is where you get into the black pepper, the allspice, and really some of those bolder kind of baking spice flavors to me. Whereas the OBSF, again, that brings more of like a mint spice to it. But I mean, I could see a little bit of like tea leaves, but it's more of a brewed black tea note that I'm picking up rather than straight up tea leaves. Caramel for sure. I mean, it's sweet enough to kind of hold up, but it's sweet. I think it's sweeter than OBSF. I think there's more of a nice rich caramel note here. Yeah, the oak definitely isn't as strong as the OBSF. I think the OBSF actually, you know, when I'm comparing these two, the OBSF actually has a little bit more of a punchier nose, which is interesting. So let's try the OESK on the palate here. Yeah, the spice is definitely more spice driven, but a baking spice, in a baking spice way. But I would argue it's still kind of muted. Like OESK is one of my favorites because of just the amount of flavors you get, and it combines with that spice. This, I think, being at 100 proof, it's like making me, and you know, this is probably because I've had a lot of those private selects, and this is making me want more that the OESK can bring to the table, which this isn't really providing because it's only 100 proof. So I think if you're a little bit more experienced with those private selects and then you maybe try these, you might be like, not as good as those private selects. But again, this is really for people to try this at the same proof and just try a different experience from just the OBSV that's been on the shelf. Yeah, it's definitely a little sweeter, not as herbal forward, but I do feel like for an OESK, it definitely feels muted. Like even coming off the OBSV, even though it's more mint forward, I feel like has a little bit more punch of flavor than the OESK does, at least right now. But man, do I love this recipe. I just think it has such a great balance of sweet, spice, a little bit of oak to kind of balance things out. Yeah, even though this is a sweeter mash bill, I actually feel like it's a little bit, I feel like the sweet flavors that I was getting in the OBSF are actually a little bit more subdued, even though the OBSF has more of that mintiness to it. Like I was starting to pick up like apple pear in the OBSF, but the OESK, I think it's a little bit drier too. overall. It's just interesting how different the recipes can be. All right, last one, and this one seems to be the darling of the collection. So the final single barrel, and like I said, what seems to be the overall favorite from what I've seen, is also a mash bill E, but uses the O yeast strain, which says big red fruit flavors, strawberry, vanilla, brown sugar, and not so much oak, which I think what makes it kind of a fan favorite. The back of the bottle also says, yeah, it says rich red fruit, vanilla, brown sugar, and delicate oak. Okay, let's try OESO. Here we go. Yeah, OESO immediately on the nose. You definitely pick up like a raspberry strawberry combination. I don't know if I so much get brown sugar, but there's definitely a sweeter, this is easily the sweetest on the nose. This has a lot, those red fruit flavors definitely come through. Yeah, it smells like vanilla, strawberry. It's definitely the least oaky, I think, out of the three. Yeah. All right, let's try this one. I can see why this is gonna be a lot of people's favorite. Because here's the thing, you get a lot sweeter of a profile and you get some of those rich red fruit notes. You get the strawberry, the raspberry, vanilla, hint of toffee, but the oak and the spice is so subtle. This is like drinking straight up, I don't know, like strawberry bubblegum, like Big League Chew bubblegum to me. It's got like that type of flavor to it. But I can see why the OESO is right now it's the hardest one to find out of the three. It's because it's so easy to sip and it's the sweetest and it's got that rich red fruit note. I think people lean more towards sweet. I've said this for a long time. A lot of people lean more towards sweet than spice, but especially in bourbon, but I mean, it's got a little spice, but man, the sweetness of this one is way more elevated, which is kind of cool. I was going in thinking, oh yeah, OESK has got this. That's been my favorite recipe, but I actually think at 100 proof, I think OESO actually does a little better. So I'll do kind of a mini final breakdown here. Basically, they're all $50. I think they're all great values, and it gives you a chance to try the other Four Roses recipes without trying to go out and hunt down the private selects that are $100 plus. Now these, yes, they're proof down to 100 proof. They're a little bit lighter. They're not as bold as the private selects, which I totally get because they're not cast strength, but I feel like this gives everyone an opportunity to try these different recipes that Four Roses offers up, and it gives you a chance to try and pick out your favorite. But overall, it kind of makes you wonder, man, I wish Four Roses did this sooner. We only had that one single barrel recipe. So as far as my recommendation, if you like the mint, more rye spice, more rye characteristics in your whiskey, go with the OBSF. If you want something a little bit more baking spice heavy, go with the OESK. But if you like fruit, sweet, and mellow, go with that OESO. I think that one is really gonna make a lot of people happy. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed this review for the new Four Roses single barrel collection. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that subscribe button below. Please hit the like button. And if you haven't yet, follow me on Instagram. Let me know down in the comments what your favorite recipe is, even if you haven't tried these yet, what you're thinking your favorite recipe would be if you got to try all three of these. And as I always say, it's not about the whiskey, it's the people you share it with. Cheers, and I will see you next time right here on The Master and Drum. Cheers, folks.